Welcome. So today I'm going to talk about what has been the worst 2 weeks that I've had since I've been in the Philippines. In reality, it's the worst 2 weeks that I've had since I left the United States. And the long and short of it is, it all involves that my son got dengue fever, which is a vector-borne mosquito illness. I'm going to talk about what happened, the disease itself, healthcare here in the Philippines, exactly the process that we went through. The one thing I won't talk about is going to be, I'll actually talk about the out-of-pocket costs, but I won't talk about actual health insurance. I don't do that. I'll explain in the end of the vlog why that is the case. So let's jump into what happened. So I had gone to Davao with my family and we'd spent several days up there. Got back and my son started feeling sick. Basically the day we got back. After a couple days, wasn't feeling any better. Symptoms were really kind of weird. It was, didn't seem to be contagious because nobody else had gotten sick. So called the doctor to find out about getting an appointment for the next day. Told her what the symptoms were. And she asked for us to go ahead and get a blood test and bring it in. So we did that. And it was showing that the white cell count was very, very low, that it had dropped. It still was within normal range, but it was I guess, low normal range. And so that and some other things in the blood test, when we got there, she examined him and determined that he had dengue fever. Performed another test to verify that and recommended that he be hospitalized, which we went ahead and we did that and be treated for dengue. And so we went to the hospital, and I'll get into all that right now. I guess I'll take you back home and talk to you about what dengue fever is, so that you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne tropical disease or a vector-borne illness. It's caused by the dengue virus, which is carried by the mosquito. The symptoms can include a fever, headache, vomiting, muscle and joint pains, itching, and skin rash. And my son ended up having all of those. The recovery time generally takes about 2 to 7 days. In our case, it was more than a week. It was slightly more than a week, probably about 9 days in total for the recovery. It can transform into hemorrhagic fever, or you can even go into what's called dengue shock syndrome. So it can be deadly. People can bleed out because of it. And I talked about earlier, the white cell counts were down, and that was true with my son. But what I should have been saying was the continued drop in stuff was actually from the platelets. And so his platelet counts were the one I was referring to earlier that continued to drop down to the 70 range, which of course the platelets are what makes your blood clot. And if you get cut, if you start bleeding, or you can just start bleeding out your nose and other orifices, if your platelets drop down too low. And that's where the real danger of serious bodily injury, death occurring from that disease. Wow, it is so hot here today, getting my walking in. So we went to the hospital and checked in, and how it works is you get there, and a lot of times they don't actually have beds available in the Philippines. And so we had to find out. And when we got there, they told us the only thing that they had available was what's called a private suite. And so for people in the United States, it's basically just a private room, just like you'd have in a hospital back in the United States, with air conditioning, private bathroom. You're the only one in the room other than your watchers. And they went through the protocols because of everything that's going on, and you have to get a chest x-ray, or the patient does, to go up, I guess, to make sure they don't have the disease. And then you're taken up to your room. And the treatment for this, because it's viral, is basically you're treating the symptoms. There's no like cure for it or anything once you've got it. And so it entails putting an IV in his arm and getting medications to deal with whatever the symptoms are, which is high fever, abdominal pain, and of course the white cell counts continuing to go down. The most important thing though is hydration. So you're getting pumped full of fluids with the IV the entire time he's there, and getting the medication the doctors prescribe. You have to make sure they eat even though they don't feel like eating, to try to get their strength up so that they can fight, the body can fight the virus. And making sure that you're pushing fluids with them as much as possible, even though they don't want to. because a lot of times they'll get dehydrated, lips will start cracking and stuff. That didn't happen. My son was very good about taking the fluids when we were giving them to him. The other thing is that's kind of different in the United States, or at least different in my experience in the United States here in the Philippines, is the hospital allows you to have a watcher, and that is somebody that stays with you in the hospital. You know, we do that voluntarily in the United States. Because he was a minor, we were allowed to have 2 people, but due to the protocols, once the watchers are in place, you're not supposed to change them out. They did allow us to, because he was going to be there for so long. Really good folks at that hospital, MCDC in Digo City. Great hospital, great staff. Can't say enough about my experience with the nurses and the orderlies. They were really good folks, nice folks, did a good job, explained stuff when I had questions about it, and took good care of him. They really did. So the watchers, once they're there, they are not supposed to leave. And again, that's due to the protocols. So if somebody has gotten in, nobody's infected with anything, they certainly don't want people going out, risking getting infection and bringing it back in. So you would go downstairs to get the, you know, things that people would bring that you would need, and then you would go back up. Also, you would have to get the pharmaceuticals yourself. So we'd go downstairs to get the pharmaceuticals. They have a pharmacy down there. Get those, bring them up to the nurses. It's not like the nurses do in the United States, where they just give you the medicine at that time. Now, I'd heard all kinds of horror stories about payments and stuff in the Philippines, and that was not the case here. I wasn't required to pay any deposit. The only thing was, is once your bill got to, it was 200 peso to 2,000 pesos, 20,000. It was 20,000 pesos, which is approximately 400 US dollars. Then you were required to make a payment, and they wouldn't let me make a payment before that. We got there right till the end. I'll put a, before I'm done with the video, I'll put down the entire price breakdown of everything and what it costs to give you an idea. I think we had a total of 6 nights there. The private room was 2,700 pesos, so roughly 50 bucks US. So he's there. He actually progressively got worse. First 2 days he got a lot worse. Before he started getting better, the white cell count dropped down to, I think the normal range is like 300 to 600. That may be wrong, but it dropped down to approximately 70, 72. Before he started getting better, he got worse, got a lot more pain. Was really just miserable on there. Really was miserable. So finally he started getting better. His white cell count on the last day started going up. Doctor again was great, and she said it was time for him to go home, and released him. We had to continue it once he got home, making sure he stayed hydrated, making sure he continued the medication for so many days that he was on, and then he finally got better and everything was okay. But it was scary. It was really scary, because at first it was not behaving like any disease I'd ever, you know, come across. Not used to vector-borne illnesses where I come from in the United States. We'd pretty well wiped most of that out. In Tennessee, we still had, you know, you had occasional stuff with West Nile fever or virus or whatever it was. Florida obviously has them, but I didn't live down there. And my understanding is I got dengue there too as well. So he got through it, but it was, you know, it was a scary time, you know, for a little kid when you're a parent having to deal with that. And his mother could not go up and be with him. And, you know, young boy, he's much more attached to her than he's going to be to me. And so that was upsetting him. And she couldn't go up because, well, I haven't said anything on the vlog yet, but she was 9 months pregnant. So they weren't going to allow her to be up there because of, you know, she could have given birth at any time, and they didn't want to have a second patient on their hands. I will say this about the staff and the nurses in the Philippines. They're absolutely great. I hear a lot of people, you know, downing on the Philippines, but the nursing is absolutely some of the best in the world. I mean, we actually recruit them in the United States. So you got lots of surgical wings in the United States that, you know, half or more of the people are Filipinos or Filipinas. They're in demand all over the world, and they go overseas and work all over the world in the nursing field. Now the facilities, they're not as nice as or as equipped as you'd have in the United States, and that's to be expected. But the people themselves, I mean, they know what they're doing. They know their jobs, and they do it very, very well. the costs. So the medicine that we got at the hospital was 2,591 pesos. The lab work was 1,680. That was checking the blood every day. The x-rays were 966 pesos. The supplies, 706 Filipino pesos. The room and board total for the whole stay was 13,050 pesos. In US dollars, that's 47, 30, 17, 13, and 235. In addition, the doctor was 9,000 pesos for their services. The nurses were 4,400. The hospital services were 4,232. In US dollars, $162, $79, $76. So the total cost was 36,624 Filipino pesos, or 658 US dollars. Process on paying was very interesting. By the way, they took credit cards, and when you pay in the end, you have to go down. They give you your bill. You go to billing and pick it up. You go to the cashier. You pay for it, and then once you are done with the cashier, they give you a receipt. You have to take that receipt and you take that to the PhilHealth. Even if you don't have PhilHealth, it doesn't matter. You've got to get it signed off by them. I'm not really sure. I never understood why you had to do that. Even if you don't have it, even if they're not paying anything, you still had to get it signed off. Then for there, you take that receipt and you go back up to the nursing station on the floor, have the nursing station sign off on it. And I think they had two signatures, one for releasing the patient. The nurse does that, and then I think housekeeping, I guess they sign off to make sure you didn't take the kitchen sink or something. I don't know. They give you that, and you take it downstairs when you're leaving with the patient, and that is presented to the guard to let them know, I guess, that you're not sneaking out with the bill on the bill. But you're required to do all of that before you get released. So finally, in conclusion, I promised I would talk about why I don't discuss health insurance and make recommendations on that or talk about it. What I will say is that this hospital, they had a sign up. They weren't accepting any reimbursements from anything. It was a private hospital. It's a more expensive hospital, from government agencies and stuff that were guaranteeing things that you could get reimbursed for that, but they were not accepting those guaranteed funds. They were wanting money on the barrelhead. Any insurance you would have, I would have had to have paid and got reimbursed from them anyway. So the reason I don't talk about health insurance specifically is because I actually am a professional and I have to carry malpractice insurance. Some people would call it errors and omissions insurance. And anything that I do that can be construed as advice or recommendations, I do have to run through them. And so I have done that, but I never heard back from them on if I could discuss that. That's more of a sensitive topic. My personal opinion is I have more of a chance of being struck by lightning than getting sued for giving bad or insurance advice on what I carry or what I think other people should carry. But I'm not willing to take the risk until they have told me one way or another, because I'm not going to pay $500, $600 extra a month in malpractice insurance simply for giving somebody free advice over the internet. Call me crazy, I'm not going to finance that. So that's the reason at the end of the day. It's just stupid insurance companies and what they will do. If they ever give me a definite answer that this doesn't have anything to do with that and it won't affect it, then I'll be happy to talk about it. Or if I meet up with anybody in private, got no problems doing that whatsoever. I just can't put it out there for public consumption and then get billed for the next 3 years. So anyway, that's the lowdown on it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope some of this was helpful. I've had a better week now than I did the last two. So good thing is everybody's okay. So take care.